Controversy. You're not seeing us because we wanted to start this show with a silent tribute to the face of the GQP's America. So as you join us, you'll be seeing the iconic image that will be forever burned into history. Nashville's is home to the trend of school shootings. We didn't want to be silent because we didn't want you to think we were frozen, but we wanted to open the show immediately with this because there have been very few things that capture the moment in the same way that this does. So do please consider what you're seeing here and how important it is to where we are in our discussion. We will be visiting this topic tonight. And this is the summary. This is the best summary I can come up with. I have other things to say about this image. We'll talk about that later. And with that, let's have a little more fun for a while. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Lucas. This is David. And this is Rob. Whoa. And we are live from LBC. There it is, from Long Beach. Live at Beechwood Brewing in downtown Long Beach. David is there in Nashville. Hello, David. How you doing?
Doing okay. It's an interesting day.
Yeah, it's an interesting week, I guess. If you really look at it that way. I've got a little soundtrack. I don't know how well it's going to play against the fact that we have a soundtrack in the background. We are in a public place. There's only one thing appropriate for when you're hanging out with your friends. So we'll do that. So your week is weird. Everybody's week is weird. It's weird to be on vacation. Everywhere you look, every screen you look at. What's your week like?
It's a bit busy. Deep and busy. Getting distracted by the music now.
I'll stop it for you. David can't.
There we go.
Tonight.
I can't. Well,
he's like,
we have a lot of variables.
We're in a fucking public place. There's music. There's people. There's a freaking greenway right in front of us. It's gorgeous and beautiful if you're here.
Right?
I'm like a hot mess.
I'm in my office. I've got my earbuds in, trying to be like, what did Lucas say? But no.
So if you're out there, say hi. If you've joined us, feel free to say hello. As always, we welcome people to say hi and feel free to participate. Drop your comments as we go. David's going to watch the comments a little more than he normally does, so he can trigger them on the screen because I have to reach way up in front of me to do it. So, David, you feel free to throw people's thoughts in as you see fit because I do not want to keep doing this like all night because we also have beers. We have quite a few beers. We have ourselves a little flight.
Oh, there you go.
So, yeah, it's great stuff. So anyway, those of us that have been here before already know the drill. It's there's a hot take happy hour that we try to start off with, but we're going to keep it a little short. We have 3 people here. So Rob, thanks for joining us.
Yeah,
and people have seen you in the split screen, but I don't think you've ever been able to sit next to one of us for the show.
That's true. This is the first.
Cool.
So, thanks for coming out to my home state.
Yeah. We're going to be talking a little bit about some of that too here.
Yes.
My pet topic of the evening is city changes and revitalization and gentrification and that sort of thing. We've been having a lot of those conversations right around the area here. So, yeah. And Rob's repping his
LAFC.
There you go.
Champions of MSL
here. I'm repping VIP Records jersey, and David is repping his best lumberjack. Speaking of repping, let's check something out.
Go.
Your score.
Yeah. How's NSC doing today?
Well, so far, Predators versus Penguins is 0-0, and it's in the second. Just started the second. So I guess that allows us, David, to drop in, and of course we get Rob on screen. He's going to be incriminated as being on screen for a go prey.
And what was
the
Ducks will play till 7 o'clock. So
I gotta say, I'm really happy about the trades that we did this year because it really was time for us to do an entire team reset with what has been going on in the Preds franchise. It's time for us to just burn it all down, rebuild it. So I'm happy. I'm happy with that this year. Next season is going to suck while we continue to actually rebuild. But we can actually rebuild.
At least the Predators have a plan. The Ducks just have a thing to just be perennial hot garbage.
No, we always have a plan every year. It's called lose to the Coyotes. That's our plan every single year. Lose to the Coyotes. Beat the Canes, sure. Why not? Beat the Kings, why not? Beat the Golden Knights, hell yeah. Arizona, shows up.
So we started the show off with Hot Take Happy Hour. Now we've only got 3 instead of 4 or 5 topics, but we do have to preface the first one because the news has developed right in front of us in the last couple of hours.
Yes.
Yep.
One of the many long-awaited indictments has now landed. Unfortunately, this is the least of them, in my opinion. David, you're the law guy. You can tell us whether or not we should be meh or not. Also,
we need to see what the indictment actually says.
They're a running club. Like the whole town is apparently jogging right now. They're all running back.
Oh, well, it's after work. People are jogging after work.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it's 5 o'clock.
What do you people do that you want to jog after work? I don't understand. What?
Well,
it's
not
Long
that I
Beach.
have room to talk, because people definitely need to be jogging.
It's a very health conscious. It's a very health conscious community.
It is a health
of Long Beach.
I say with a cigarette and a beer.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I'll commend everyone in this lady that's sort of running. But anyway, it's really it's actually getting a little chilly here. It's actually been really pleasant weather, but on the chilly side, it's kind of cool. But this is a great spot. We're on the promenade, which is like a pedestrian walkway / restaurant road here in downtown Long Beach, and it's really cool. It's nice scenery. My legs are actually a little cold. That's something that I'm not used to thinking about California. Anyway, so Trump indictment. This is the Stormy Daniels Hushman case. For me, and I'll let you correct if I'm off the mark. This is the least of them because it's tabloidy. It doesn't actually have much to do with the sabotage of the nation, where Georgia, with interference in elections, is a much bigger bite. And the other one, I guess, is also New York, which would be the inflation of the value and the tax fraud properties. Those two, to me, are better. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, David. What's your take on that?
It depends. And I want to put this up while I'm explaining this. I want to put Olivia's comment up here real fast. So basically what this case revolves around is, did Trump make a donation to his campaign by paying hush money to Stormy Daniels? The answer seems to be because we know that the indictment includes a felony count, we are pretty confident that this will be a campaign finance violation. Okay, good. We need to see what the other counts are. One of the things where Olivia here is saying, I don't expect him to do hard time. I think he will. This is sentencing guidelines on this are 3 to 5 years. And one of the things about Trump is that he is going to walk into this blustering hard. I don't see Trump entering a guilty plea. If I was his attorney, I'd be advising him, listen, we're going to go work something out with the DA. we're gonna get you a plea. You're gonna plea down, right? But you're gonna plead guilty, and we're gonna get away from we're gonna get the felony charge off, and you're gonna plead to the rest, and you're gonna pay a big fine, and you're gonna do some other thing. But we're gonna get this away from you. I don't think Trump is capable of taking that deal and pleading down. I think Trump is going to have to walk in there, and he's going to say, "No, I'm not guilty of any of this. This is all." In his mind, this will be excellent political theater. And the problem is that the judge is not going to treat it like political theater. The DA is not going to treat it like political theater. And if he pleads not guilty and gets found guilty by a jury, then it's going to be 3 to 5 years.
Well, that'd be nice. Now, of course, that has to happen before he can. Well, I don't know how that happens. I don't know. I mean, how does that work versus running for office? A reasonable person would just nod, but that's not him.
That's not him.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's not him.
It wouldn't be unprecedented.
Just, you are not eligible because you're under indictment, period. But that's not going to happen either because the fucking nuts in the GOP caucus in the House.
Yeah, it's not. I don't see this as being it's good. I see this as being something for him to fundraise off of. I think this is going to burn him with a lot of voters. I think it's going to push. It's going to definitely push him into a space where he's already lost Michigan, he's already lost Wisconsin, he's already lost Pennsylvania off the bat. I mean, this is a no-win scenario. I also think not having Trump on the ballot results in a pretty much guaranteed loss for the Republicans in the next election cycle. It's going to be hard for a lot of these people who backed him and kept on saying "Yay Trump, yay Trump, yay Trump" to turn around and go back to those suburbs that they need to vote with them, especially in the Senate, right? And like this upcoming election cycle was supposed to be bad news for the Democrats. I don't see this as being that. I see the Republicans having an anchor around their neck because this trial is not going to conclude this year. This trial, they're going to drag this out. This is going to have a lot of continuances in it. He hasn't even been formally arrested. Once he gets formally arrested, his attorneys are going to try and drag their feet and find holes in the DA's case. The DA is going to also probably be dragging their feet just a little, just to make sure that they get more evidence, more ammo to put in front of the judge. It's going to be a long few months. I wouldn't expect this to actually go before a jury before maybe November at the earliest, which means that we're now well into fundraising season for a lot of Republicans, and it's got like they'll get the big name donor.
This is an unprecedented thing. We haven't been in this situation, have we?
No, we haven't. I mean, it's a tricky situation. I think I'm also hoping that Bragg's decision to go ahead and push forward this indictment is going to go ahead and prompt the Georgia and the Georgia grand jury and the other grand jury currently impaneled in New York, considering, or I'm not sure if that one's been impaneled yet on the fraud issue. I think that this is going to start. I always liken it to penguins testing the waters to see if there's a sea lion. They'll all clump together at the edge of an iceberg until one falls in. If that one falls in and gets eaten by the sea lion, then they know there's sea lions in the water. So right now we've been doing the penguin trick of everyone clustering at the edge of the iceberg, trying to see if anyone's going to fall in. And I think now that someone's in, we're going to see for a hot sec whether or not the sea lion's in the water. If there's not, then they're all going in. So Georgia, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you start getting pushes from other municipalities to sue the Trump campaign for expenses related to security for his rallies. Many of those bills have gone unpaid. You know, there is a whole list of legal cases that can be brought against Trump and the Trump campaign and the Trump organization. And I think once you start getting those penguins in the water, if they don't die in the water, then they're all going to go in.
Yeah, that's a good point. And also, Olivia points out somebody had to be first, and so the cheap tawdry case is actually not bad as a first, because that changes it so that later on the shit that really matters, like Georgia's. I mean, the real estate thing is crooked, but everybody already knows he's crooked. That's the thing about the hush money and the real estate, is those are just on brand already. But the Georgia thing is the definitely fucked up part.
Ironically, however, I think that's really the least of his worries. What Trump relies on, the Roman saying is the sinews of war are infinite money. And the sinews of Trump are infinite access to donations and cash. I think when you start hitting the money like you do with campaign finance and real estate fraud, you're hitting him where it actually hurts. I mean, whoops! As I hit my own camera, it's like I always say. We never took Capone down on murder or any of the other things we did. We took him down on tax fraud, right? You go where the money is. So I really feel like Trump is in a bad spot with the money, or a worse spot in the money. I think, ironically, the Georgia thing, I don't think that will affect his Republican donors or any of them at all. I think Trump being convicted of a financial crime, on the other hand, that's going to start them to be like,
Okay, that's an interesting take. Well, let's pivot to Trump's Trump's Mexican American War was what I thought about. The Trump Mexican War. So David earlier sent me this little piece about Trump trying to essentially draw up war plans on Mexico with his team. It's more of a war on the cartels, whether Mexico likes it or not, kind of policy. Because out so well all the other times that American presidents have said to South American countries, no, fuck what you want, we're just going to go start a war with drugs.
I really feel like he read. Read. Trump didn't read it. I really feel like Trump watched Clear and Present Danger and took the entirely wrong message from the movie. I feel like he's like, that seems like a good idea. I'll go start it. I mean, and it's
saying he had his own director's cut version.
Yeah, right. It was really just two sock puppets.
That's how it makes all
Yes, Mr. President, you did the right thing. Send more military into South America.
Thank you, Secretary Stockton.
I mean, you can just call the sock Lindsay. It's the same.
Yeah. But no, I mean it's on one hand, I think that it's inevitable that someone's going to do something stupid and decide that the Mexican military can no longer control the situation, because the cartels are going to are continuing to ratchet it up. You have a situation just a couple of weeks ago where the cartels seized the Acapulco airport to try and prevent one of their leaders from being put on a plane to be extradited. It's increasingly looking like the Mexican government under Obrador is not equipped to handle this. He keeps on oscillating between this idea that he's going to somehow placate the cartels, and then he's going to fight them, and then he's going to placate them. I think he's going to slip up enough that it's very possible that the United States military will have to somehow intervene in Mexico. But the thing is, it cannot be an invasion. It's got to be either Obrador or one of Obrador's successors. Right now, Obrador is trying to re-engineer the Constitution to make himself president for life. That's how much we pay attention to what happens in Mexican politics here, ladies and gentlemen. Is most of America doesn't realize it's going to shit south of the border politically.
And Trump's plan essentially this whole thing.
Yeah, I mean,
roll across. Woo-ha! We're going to fix it all.
Yeah, and the thing is that if we do that, it's just going to take an already deteriorating situation and just send it straight down the shitter. It's going to be bad. It's going to be real bad. And we're going to be in a situation where we thought Vietnam was bad. Oh, buddy. This is going to be so much worse because unlike Vietnam, it's not going to be anywhere near as clear cut as to what's going on, because the way the cartels have spread through Mexico and Mexican society, it's very difficult in many situations to separate what's just normal Mexican society trying to function by whatever means possible and what's the cartels. So it's a very bad situation. I think the main thing is that we aren't doing here in the U.S. is where is the primary source of the cartels' munitions, their guns and their ammunition? Where does it come from? Oh, that's right, us. They send people into the U.S. to buy guns, and then those guns are transported back across the border to arm the cartels. But we won't do anything to stop it.
That's weird. How
because
related to our overall topic.
See, they say we don't do exports.
Yeah. So speaking of drugs, these two topics, by the way, were kind of selected because they give us a few hours south and a few hours north as two beginnings to our conversation from where we are in the greater LA area. So in San Jose, you know how all those cops talk about that if you just walk through the room with a grain of fentanyl nearby, you're going to keel over and die? Well, that's funny because one of them in San Jose didn't seem to have a problem in proximity to fentanyl. And she, which is fascinating to me, she got caught in a scheme to traffic some fentanyl. David, you know more about the story.
Yeah, it gets better. She's also the head of the local police union.
Yay! Yes, that's the best part.
There's my little scene up.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
The abject corruption of police unions laid bare in the best of ways.
I mean, the Republicans keep on talking about fentanyl is the big problem. And we keep on trying to do something about fentanyl. And they keep on saying, well, it's just about policing the border. Well, the police at the border, it turns out, are one of the biggest causes of fentanyl getting into the country. Now, I should also point out that if fentanyl was the problem, I would expect to see, ODs happening like clockwork in, perhaps American cities. But the problem is that if we look at where the fentanyl keeps on ending up, it's not in New York, it's not in LA, it's not in San Francisco, it's not in Austin, it's not in Houston, it's in Lower Bucksnort, man. It's in these places, it's in these rural towns, and you've got to be looking at what's going on in these rural towns that's causing these massive spikes in drug use.
Lower
and
LBC.
There we go. Where's the C? I don't know where the C is.
City.
Okay. Lower Bucksnort City. Okay.
It's generous. It's very generous. It's extremely generous.
Yeah.
I think it's town by even the most kind of estimations, but
but I mean, it's in these rural communities where Republicans have gutted the economy with tax cuts. They've gutted the economy by slashing public services, and nobody wants to build factories. Nobody wants to build businesses in these communities because there's no public support for the population, and as a consequence, you see these ever increasing levels of drug use, and ever increasing as people constantly look for new highs. You have dealers increasingly adding this fentanyl into their drugs to increase the high until someone finally ODs. But I mean, the trade over the Mexican border is not the problem with fentanyl. The problem with fentanyl is that you have rural communities where there's nothing better to do for these people other than get high and die.
Pretty much, yeah. So I'm probably going to never hear anything else about that because our media in this country never follows up on anything. But I'll be interested in, I'll depend on you to keep a lookout because it's closest to you. Yeah, tell us later if there are any updates because that could be really fun. Yeah. Last up in the happy hour, Disney. Now, this is some complicated legal shit, so I'm just going to go straight to you for this, David. But Disney has kind of gone around DeSantis' bullshit and set him up for mass failure.
Well, they set it up really creatively. So what they did is everyone kept on waiting to see when Disney was going to shoot back, right? Over the Florida seizure of the Reedy Creek Development District.
And exactly how they would shoot back. That's been, because it's like, well, there's a lot of options. So what are they going to do?
Now, and the thing is, DeSantis and his board have just been increasing every single time they turn around, increasing the rhetoric, increasing like the tempo and the volume, and making it basically seem like Florida was somehow going to take over Disney, which was never going to happen. But that's what they wanted to tell their voters and supporters. Well, what Disney did was Disney said, okay, the state's new development board appointed by DeSantis takes over this day. But it's not this day yet. It's this day. And on this day, our Reedy Creek Development Board is still in power. So on this day, the day before, the new one takes over and becomes the legitimate successor and therefore legal inheritor of everything the previous board did. The new board is basically going to take all these powers, or the old board is basically going to take all these powers that the new board thought they were going to claim and devolve them back to Disney.
Ooh, nice move.
Yeah. So there's some challenging, some legal maneuvering, and there's going to be a bunch of fighting. But
I mean, here's the thing:
hamstrung them for any power that they could really have for doing
right. They're in no position to vote themselves more power. DeSantis has probably exhausted his political capital on this matter with the Florida legislature. I don't think he has enough to. I mean, otherwise, it's just the beat up on Disney legislature. And I think Disney pulling this move also sends. I think a lot of Florida legislators were looking for a sign of how Disney was going to punch back. And now that they have this one, them having to go back and recraft a bill that would target Disney is going to get politically rough. It's also going to be legally rough for them to do it. So that's why they're trying to go to the courts to undo what the outgoing commission did. But again, there's not a lot of options. They were the previous Reedy Creek Development Commission was empowered by the state to go do this, and they did it. And now the new commission has no power to just arbitrarily increase their own power, right? That's not within the scope of the act. They have to deal with what they have at hand in the charter of the Reedy Creek Development District, which that charter has now been amended to devolve all this power back to Disney. Ironically, however, though, one of the things the Reedy Creek Development, the previous commission did, was definitely explained to the DeSantis administration, because the DeSantis administration had been very vague about how they were going to handle this. They made it really clear. all those government bonds that were held by Disney, right, that they bought, and they said, this is our debt, we have to repay it because we're the administrators of the Reedy Creek Development District. No. These belong to the Reedy Creek Development District, not to us, so you can go find a way to pay back that $13.5 billion. Congratulations. Go.
So,
Well played.
do you think? Don't you think it's a taxpayer's sinkhole to be able to fight the Disney legal team? Because there was some discussion of that in the piece that you sent me about this, where it's like to mount the fight is just a phenomenal undertaking, given the resources of Disney versus the resources of this government takeover piece. That like the idea of coming toe to toe with the amount of lawyers and litigation could be very expensive for the government.
And it's for that.
It kind of does.
Yeah. I think definitely this is going to burn itself out faster than most of the diehards think it will. Primarily for that reason, but also because everything about what DeSantis has done in this situation screams of partisan overreach, and it screams of attacking a private business for the culture war. That there was no legitimate reason to strip Disney of the Reedy Creek Development District. There was no reason, but Florida was empowered to do it. Right, the Florida government was empowered to be like, you know what, we don't want that to be here. We don't have to give a good reason. We just have to give a rational reason for how we do it. Right. I think what you're wandering into, however, is First Amendment issues. Number one is because that's where they want to point this, and you're going to run into a lot of really big First Amendment issues on behalf of Disney, on behalf of them to be able to say what they want, and by extension, do what they want with property that they own and are zoned properly for. I think that this is going to be a big issue going forward for the Florida, because here's the thing, like, it isn't just Disney that they've pointed this gun at. If I'm any sort of business interest in Florida, now I have to wonder if I react to the market in a way which displeases someone for a cultural reason, right? I could have the government. Here's the deal: like, there are businesses in New York that I'm sure the government of New York, or businesses in California, I'm sure that the government of California would love to be like, oh, I'm gonna smack you so hard, oh boy, but they can't, and they don't. Yeah, Musk. Well, no, I mean, we've already seen Newsom gargling his balls. So I don't know how. But and Newsom will continue to do so. I'm not quite so sure that that's a universal sentiment in Sacramento, though, of how to handle some of these individuals like Zuckerberg and Musk. I think that in Florida, however, it has had a restrictive effect on businesses that might want to think. I mean, if I'm a movie studio, do I want to go to Florida to film something, right? Or will I go to hell, I don't know, the Dominican Republic or someplace to get a similar shot of that's Everglades like, right?
Yeah.
Is it because it's safer? Because the thing is, I don't know if I'm going to have the Florida State Patrol show up and start arresting people because, I don't know, one of my performers was in drag, or because we said something about gay people, or I don't know, right?
Yeah.
And Florida has created this restrictive environment where I think it's going to burn them, because I don't know what I'm going. If Florida's going to continue to play this game, I don't know if I want to do business there. And I think Disney is
the only thing they can learn from. Right.
Yeah, Disney has definitely put that shiv with this maneuver, Disney's definitely put that shiv in his ribs to be like, we can and will fight back, and we will politically embarrass you.
Good.
I mean, I think the only other thing Disney could do at this point, and I think that it should, is just openly come out on one side of the culture war and be like, you know what? If the other side's going to treat us like this, other sides were mad at us, but they wanted to talk to us. Conservatives don't want to talk to us; they want to boycott us and then take our property and stuff. It might be time for us to go ahead and pick a side and push back all the way and use our massive media empire, ABC, ESPN, the Mouse, all of it, and be just like,
keep using it. Well, David,
behold the power of my.
Go full John Wick.
Right,
Yeah.
there you go.
Well, behold the power of my fully operational battle station, motherfuckers.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like a good time to drink. Let's get out some beer, shall we? It's time for the segment that we all do. What you drinking? So I'm going to go first on our end. If you want to pull that single around, we've got a whole flight board here. You're going to have to put up with us being long-winded about a bunch of different beer. And then you can gently sneak that guy in here without destroying the whole thing. Pull the whole thing around. And while you do that, I'm going to do a little show and tell. I want to tell you about Beechwood, that is in Beach with Sand. Beechwood Brewing, which is where we are this evening. So, David, you might recognize the vibe here on the wall behind the bar at Beechwood Brewing. They are into the whole custom painted panel thing that you and I always enjoyed about Tailgate in Nashville. And they've got some really witty names of their beers and some really fun stuff going on. I've selected a flight of 5 for us to talk about, but I'm not going to run through the data because that's just way too much to talk about. So for the data on the beers, we're going to defer people to go look them up by name on Untappd and enjoy. Beechwood does a little competition. Here's their trophy wall. He said there's more in the bag, so they take it seriously when they get out there, and they do some World Beer Cup and other competing. And you gotta love a place that has a freaking pinball.
That looks fantastic.
You know what we're doing after this.
Drunken pinball.
Yes,
It's the out of order sign adds to the authenticity too.
Yes.
Right, doesn't it? So let's throw these. We're going to throw this flight up in front of you, and we'll talk about this thing. So here are the beers that we're going to run through. We've got the Hef Leopard, the variant Hef, the Beer of the Dragon, which is kind of I think it's an Enter the Dragon gag, Imperial Red. I asked him what his most West Coasty IPA was, and he said it's the LBC. So we're going to do that. We've got In the Shadows Dark Lager and Full Malted Jacket Wee Heavy. So we're going to start with the leopard, Hef Leopard. So I'm going to gulp it down and hand it to you for further thoughts.
All right.
That is heavy. Heavy as heavy gets. I think I like it. I think I would love it with an orange slice. That's the only thing missing in this experience. What are you thinking about that? Is it hitting for you, or is it not your bag?
Oh, that's actually really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very
And I do
good.
like the orange in it.
Yeah. That's always a nice addition. It's got we don't have to just talk about the show. It's got a nice color to it. I end up a lot of times with a lot of Hefeweizen that are kind of skanky in a way, and this doesn't do that. This keeps a freshness to it. I'm really enjoying it. Slide that one over. You can at your leisure run through. I'm going to just pulverize the first half.
Yeah.
That way I can keep talking.
You have walking distance to the hotel. I have a drive back to Hawthorne.
This is also the case. Rob has to drive half an hour. I have to walk 5 blocks. I scootered over here, but all the gear in a duffel bag. It was efficient. Well, the first one wasn't efficient. Shame on you, Lion. That one was at like top of the mode. And I tried to toggle the limit off and on. It didn't work. It was just creeping. So I dumped it and got a new one. Like, not dumped it, parked it nicely.
Yeah.
Coupon for the free ride. All right, so next up is the Dragon. This is the Beer of the Dragon Imperial Red. Now, I've recently encountered the Imperial Red Barrel Age situation with Crimson Keep Dragon Smoke, so I wonder how this is going to land close to that, if it is at all. That is different. I'm actually not sure how to interpret that. It's not at all similar to that. Barrel aging in that case makes a huge difference. With it not being barrel aged, it's a little bitey, a little more like a red with bite. It's going well the more I let it settle. I feel like this would be a great hearty dinner beer with some food. What do you think?
That's definitely a food beer.
Yeah.
Appetizer or something.
I wouldn't sit around with this and just drink on it as much as some of this. Yeah. It's pretty good, though. It's pretty damn good. I don't know if I've ever had an Imperial Red. I've had my reds as reds, just red ales. I don't know if I've had an Imperial Red. So that's interesting. All right.
By the way, in honor of you not being in Michigan this week, I did get some Dragon's Milk White Stout.
That's not White Stout.
Yeah.
What?
That's the.
No, it's not White Stout. The White Stout has its own can. It's a can first. It's only can.
Well, what did I get?
Dragon.
They had it labeled wrong. Bourbon barrel aged stout with chocolate, marshmallow, graham cracker, and natural flavors. I don't know. I got some Dragon's Milk Reserve in honor of you not being in Michigan. So at least there's some of Michigan still here. Oh, is it the s'mores?
It's the s'mores. Yeah, if it's marshmallow and graham, that's the s'mores. That's the s'mores.
I guess they had it mislabeled.
Yeah, they must have had the other one there first. Yeah, you know the White Stout.
Yeah, I've had the White Stout. I just didn't realize it only came in a can.
Only can. And its days are numbered, but I can't disclose how I know that. But it's going by. I have some information that it is going bye-bye.
Oh.
Okay, next up. Here we are. We're at the real deal. I'll let you carry that one over. And then this one's the apparently this is the namesake. This is the LBC IPA. West Coastiest West Coast you can get. Okay. Oh. Thank you very much. That's yeah. Okay.
Do you know what kind of hops they're using?
Not a damn clue. But once you let that sit for it tanks right out. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. It is not the dankest I've ever had. I feel like I have to whisper that.
We're not at Idaho 7 levels, right?
I don't think so.
That's got such a multi-release.
It is. It's got layers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like it. I think it's pretty refreshing.
Yeah.
I think I would enjoy it more if it were hazy. I think it would just feel beefier. But it's not bad at all. And it's beautiful. That's really it's good stuff. Yeah. That's a good namesake. I think that serves well. All right, next up, In the Shadows Dark Lager. So there it is. And of course, you know what I have to say about this. We've been here in the show before. That beer, ladies and gentlemen, is black as hail.
Yes, it is.
That is a beautiful, beautiful dark.
So are they just calling it a dark lager, or do you know if it's actually a Schwarz beer?
Didn't get that far. Look it
Okay.
up on Untapped, it might tell us, but I didn't get that deep in the.
Well, I mean, some people use the term some people use the term interchangeably. Sports beer and dark lager. Some people consider dark lager a different style. So
I'm pretty sure that's a sports beer. Yeah.
it's got a sweetness to it, a smoky sweetness. Yeah, that's a sports beer.
I'm going to look it up.
And people get scared off by the German name, and they call it a dark lager, and I get mad at them because it's not what. There's no such thing as dark lager. There is only sports beer.
So, lager dark is how it's categorized on Untapped. But I feel like it meets that mark. It tastes like it's hidden sports beer. And they are giving people the Swartz Buckler badge when they drink it on Untapped. So Untapped clearly has.
Yeah, it's a sports beer.
All right, last but not at all least, because this one's going to be the punchiest. This is the full malted jacket wee heavy. I'm looking forward to this one quite a bit, actually, because I feel like this will be more across my home plate. Oh yeah, that one. It's not as anvil dropped in your belly as a lot of wee heavies feel. This one kind of smoother.
Notes of honey. What do you got in there?
It's woody, but it's a rye barrel situation. So it's a little woody. Yeah.
Okay. But I mean, because most wee heavies have like a sweet note to them, whether it be caramel or honey or.
It's got a little bitter.
It's very slight.
Yeah, it's very slight. The bitter takes over a little bit more, but it's not bad.
Yeah.
Do you know what it is on in IBUs?
I can look it up. That's all I'm doing is looking at shit up. Let's see. This one's full jacket beach. So we
12
are
IBU?
looking at 12. Yep.
So it's the roasting of the malt that's. Yeah, it's the roasting of the malt that's giving you that bitterness.
Golden Promise malt that might be lightening it up a little bit.
Yeah, but that's also what's giving you
with British Goldings hops. So it's very British take in this.
Yeah, it's the roasting of the malt that's giving you that bitter. I actually I was having me and Tennessee Brew Works were having a little bit of a party this afternoon earlier, and they were showing me off. Which, by the way, I have to find some way to get you their new Basil Ryman beer, which is absolutely off the chain. It's incredible.
Okay. What breed?
How to describe it? I think technically it's a Belgian, but actually, let me look it up. How they want to classify it? Basil Ryman.
Sounds like a name of someone. Like old money.
Oh, that's right. It's a farmhouse. That's right. They classified it as a farmhouse saison, but it's basil, orange, clove, and long pepper.
Oh well, that's saison as fuck. Farmhouse.
Yeah, it is good. It is so good. It is absolutely delicious. All right, so now you'll get to watch me possibly hurt myself.
Oh, that's good. I can't wait.
This little number, Jalapeno Jack.
Wow. Okay.
Now, Fat Orange Cat.
Chili beer. Holy shit. You're in for it.
Fat Orange Cat likes
Is there a
to.
hot? Oh,
I'm gonna describe Fat Orange Cat for a moment while I let this settle for a moment.
So once again,
So-
David sees more cat on the show than he's seen in the last 6 months.
So Fat Orange Cat likes to play around with a lot of really cool flavor combinations. A lot. I had their white stout a couple of weeks ago, and surprisingly for a normally white stouts are on the they're pale, but they're normally kind of a little bit on the more between a porter and a blonde beer. So they're going to have a little bit of sweetness, but they're not going to be overly sweet. They're going to take away a lot of that smokiness. Fat Orange Cat's white ale, on the other hand, was just like, I think I'm going to go rob a marshmallow factory and shove all that in this beer. Because there's no possible way I could pay for that many marshmallows. I'm literally just going to steal them and shove them in here. So Fat Orange Cat likes to do really big flavors, and I'm going to see how much chili they decide to pack in this. Oh! Yep. We decided to pack all the fucking chilies in that, didn't we?
Not only did David get more headed in class than he's seen in 6 months, he looks like he's been giving head with the amount of facial hair trying.
Right?
So you say you need a taco with that?
This like, so I could tell by the smell as soon as I tipped it up. Like it's like the smell of chilies is super powerful in this. This is almost like I honestly believe they took probably just some chilies and just put them. If none of you all have ever seen how sometimes you infuse beer or mead, you'll take a mesh bag, a fine mesh bag, and you'll take your ingredients and you'll and yes, it's called this. You'll take them and you'll push them through the bung hole on the and you will just let them rest for a couple of months in with your
We're gonna make this as hard as possible. Yeah.
Oh yes. I feel like that's what they did here. Yeah. No, I knew this was coming. As soon as I said the words, I'm like, oh, here we go. But I really feel like that's what they did here. I feel like they took dried chilies and just straight up rested them in the beer as it was after they had fermented it, and just because this very much tastes like an after fermentation conditioning. Yeah, I mean it tastes like I wouldn't necessarily say it tastes necessarily like jalapenos. I'd say it's got a little bit lighter flavor, but it's definitely the chilies. It is very much like someone made jalapeno jack cheese beer.
I'm interested.
Yes.
This is a strange.
I'm very interested in your ideas and would like to subscribe to your newsletters.
I was warned when I got this that this was going to be a strange beer, and it's definitely a strange beer. This is definitely
weird shit, man.
Like, this is definitely something I would give to someone and be like, show me how much you love beer. Drink this. Prove your devotion.
That's great. Well, good. So do you like it? Is it
it's
once thing, you just review it and move on, or would you go get it again?
I would say this: if I was making like puerco pibil or tacos al pastor, or more importantly, I feel like because I'm a fucking southerner, and of course I'm going to find a way to turn everything into pork. Puerco, puerco pastor. I would definitely pair this with that. Like, this would definitely be something where like this is going to add to the dish. I feel like this would be better with a food pairing than just chilling out on your porch having a beer. I feel like this definitely needs like a big, bold, Tex-Mex or Mexican dish in front of it, or it's Latin American of any kind. Get some Bolivian
It would be
barbecue.
good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean,
Mimosas, you know what I'm talking about?
Yes,
Mimosas?
Salvadoran.
yeah. I mean, if you all were in California, and if they were shipping this to California, this should be selling off the shelves for like Mexican food. This would be, I would definitely do this over a cerveza with a lot of stuff because
Road trip to East
it's gonna,
Oh, there we go.
yeah, it's definitely gonna have that extra flavor.
Huh. Cool. All right. Well, good. Keep on with that. We're going to keep on sipping on these, and let's dig in on the pet topic that I brought to the table. And this is actually kind of more of a Rob topic in a lot of ways. So Rob's been driving me around a few places when it lines up. Like sometimes I'm taking transit, sometimes I'm taking a ride with Rob, sometimes I'm taking a lift. Sometimes I'm taking two lifts because, like yesterday, when I went in search of the Easy E gravesite, I went to the entirely wrong hill of Rose Hills, and it's really big. So, to put it in perspective, the Rose Hills Memorial Garden Cemetery here in LA, it's Mount Olivet Cemetery in Nashville.
No.
Each section of it's about twice that, and separated awkwardly by a neighborhood. So at some point, a neighborhood went in between them before they could like expand forward, and so there was just no way to really make that work the right way for me to just walk and fix it. So I had one lift there, realized I was in the wrong place, got a different lift to get out of there and get into the right place, and it wasn't too hard to find after that. Somebody had done a Google map with a dot, and then once you actually look around, the Easy marker is like a 3x4 foot fucking big thing with like red text. I mean, it's very clear, but it was really cool to do.
Well,
So when I'm riding Rob, go ahead.
I was going to say, LA is famous for being home to some of the nation's only true necropolises.
Yeah.
That's, and for those of you who don't know what that means, it means City of the Dead. Because unlike New York, which eventually just dug everyone up and moved them to New Jersey, literally. LA just kept on building bigger and bigger cemeteries, and so LA is home to some of the world's biggest cemeteries for people, owing to its demographic makeup and desire for people to pay whatever it takes to stick someone in the ground.
Well, we've had a few times when Rod's been driving and pointing out things and talking to me about it, and the big one that I want to kind of jump off from and let you talk about is Inglewood.
Yeah.
So earlier this week, I spent some time in Compton on my day of hip hop tourism, and I purposefully sought out this place in Compton that's right in the hood. I mean, in the hood. And I'm not, white guy analyzing that estimation, because that would be basically the way a lot of people describe basically everything.
Yeah.
But this was off the beaten path in the middle of Compton. And I sought it out on purpose because it was this like local NPR blog that had done the top 5 places you need to eat in Compton. And one of them was closed permanently in COVID. One of them was impractical. One of them was too Texas barbecue for me to be that interested. There was another one I forgot what the deal was. And then there was Loretto's Fried Turkey. And it's in like a tiny little strip mall. And it's this really cool dude that Joe that does this fried turkey recipe. It's really good. Turkey wing as big as my face, man. And he's the kindest, most gracious person. And I've had a lot of I've been doing a lot of thinking, a lot of introspection. You and the rest of the Gen Y people will be happy to know I've been trying to think about how I interpret the world and respond to certain things and how to come back from this vacation in a little bit better mode. So there have been a couple of times when I've been moved by some shit. I have, it's been a long time since I sat down over a meal and was moved, but I sat down over this meal and I got a little bit emotional because this man was so gracious and so kind and so real. He told me he refused COVID assistance. They called and said, "Do you need any money?" He said, "I don't need any money. Give it to people that need it. I'm making money." He was just such a genuine dude. Yeah. And the food was incredible. And this journey involves some bus to the nearest corner and then some walking past some seriously sketchy, closed, dilapidated structures. It was the real experience that I was looking for. But in some cases, I've ended up in the car with Rob, and we were riding through Inglewood, which if you're a kid that grew up with some 90s hip-hop, you wouldn't interpret Inglewood as being you look around and go, "Whoa, fancy." Yeah. But I was looking out the windows and I was trying to going, "Whoa, fancy." And Rob has recently moved back to Hawthorne, having grown up in Hawthorne.
Right, which is just south of Inglewood.
Yeah, they're adjacent. And so I wanted to let you talk for a minute about the changes that have happened over the years, what it was like when you were here as a youth versus when you moved and then came back, and where you've seen the good and the bad and how it plays out. Because this is also a region that has just a hell of a homeless issue. Yeah. Just a rough house situation. So take it away.
So obviously the biggest, growing up in Inglewood, it had the Hollywood Park racetrack, and it had the fabulous Forum, which is where the Lakers play. Around that, though, you pretty much had what was at one time a very middle-class white population in the 60s. And it gradually became more African-American community. Still is.
We almost dumped an earbud into the beard, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
Y'all need to...
So what's happened now
Go on.
is the Stan Kroenke brought the Rams back from St. Louis, and he's built SoFi Stadium, which is not just a stadium.
SoFi is in England.
SoFi is in England,
and we're going to be there on Sunday.
That way, Southern California could have at least one team that might have a chance at the Super Bowl every 20 years, instead of one that's just going to charger it, right?
Yeah. Right.
No,
David, Rob was running down on the sports to me, and I was like, "What?"
No, we will not, David. That is not how this show works. No, we
David
will not.
could have easily been the third guy at the table if he's jealous of the drinking. They live. How far do you guys live from each other?
We live 3 blocks away from each other.
David and Rob are
Oh, I see. So we have the Johnny come lately who suddenly wants to pipe up and explain to us about the consumption of poisonous fermentation of yeast. Please do go on.
So SoFi Stadium.
SoFi Stadium.
Back to the top.
It's basically not just a stadium. There's areas around it that are being built out. There's going to be a theater. There's an IMAX theater that's going on. There's a Hollywood Park casino that's been there. So there's got all these things that are going up. The NFL West Coast office is by the stadium.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's got all these things that built up around there. And then the Clippers arena is going up across the street.
Yeah.
As a result of all this development, the city has had all these, money come into the coffers. So they've developed some of the area. And so what you've seen now is you've seen a gentrification of the city of England.
And I don't know if I caught you off guard when I started parsing those terms of gentrification versus revitalization. Right. And I didn't, we're driving along. Rob's trying to do the driving, so I'm not trying to like get too deep while he's trying to drive. But now that we're doing this conversation, was that the first time you'd ever been presented with that duality, or did you kind of get the gentrification versus revitalization concept? Because I was interrogating Rob, like, was it gentrification or is it revitalization? He's like, well, it's gentrification.
Yeah, because there is a difference. And because you've seen, I think, a population of 5,000 people that have left Inglewood because they can't afford to live in Inglewood.
Yeah,
because of the gentrification.
Right. And if you think about that, if you think about everything you've ever heard in 90s hip-hop lyrics, it's like, or rap lyrics, it's like, how can you see a world where people are leaving Inglewood because they can't afford it? Right. I mean, I've been running around for this past several days while I'm out here on this vacation, on streets and in communities that are literally just a list of rap lyric locations. And it's really cool. I'm dorking out about it hardcore. Like, I'm so, like, when Rob's like, hey, we're on Crenshaw now, I'm like, I'm going, unnecessarily fanboy nuts. But
we went through Florence and Normandy.
Yeah, we actually went to Florence and Normandy. We parked at the gas station, got out and took photos, like some real fucking
Watts Towers.
Watts Towers. Like, there's been a lot of great stuff.
Two white guys hanging out at these locations.
And
Dave points out. Whoops, there you go. Inglewood was one time one of the richest neighborhoods.
Yeah, it was.
So these cycles happen.
Yeah.
And you've heard me talk before about how I feel that those cycles are natural to some extent. And if we didn't allow gerrymandering, the cycles of communities would actually serve the purpose of limiting terms. This is something that I've leaned on quite often. If you think about, like, if it was once wealthy and it changed, if you didn't allow gerrymandering where these assholes could just follow their voters wherever their voters white flighted to, then they would have to either become representatives of the lower income, browner population or get the fuck out. Yeah. And I think that's when people talk about gentrification and term limits, I always point out that if you just go with leaving it alone, communities tend to change. Yeah. Now, sometimes they're changed by SoFi and gentrification. Sometimes they change on their own. Like, I don't think anybody specifically changed South Nashville, but where I lived in South Nashville definitely used to be the Brentwood before Brentwood, and it changed.
Point.
So go ahead.
Yeah, my point. The changes are no longer natural. We've moved past that.
That is true.
And the reason is because there's a couple of reasons. Number one, changes in tax law, and number two, changes in how businesses, basically, other investment opportunities in America are too crowded, and increasingly, because of changes in law, you have these what are called real estate investment trusts. Here in Tennessee, it's very much present. I've actually tried to work with the Methodist Church in the past to start a real estate investment trust geared towards helping people displaced by gentrification. We couldn't quite get that off the ground. But, I mean, it was this idea it's an idea that I generally like, which is use the tools that are breaking you to rebuild you. And I really wish that more people would sort of embrace that. I wish the federal government would embrace that, to be like, hey, instead of fighting big business, I should become the biggest business and beat you over the head with it. So one of the things that's happened this is no longer natural, for instance, Blackwood has a simply staggeringly large real estate investment trust. Simply staggering, not Blackwood, pardon me, BlackRock investment group has a simply staggeringly large real estate investment trust. And the purpose of this is, like, before you're talking about natural cycles. Now you're talking about this process that has begun where companies like BlackRock or investment firms like BlackRock want to come into impoverished neighborhoods, buy a lot of stuff for cheap, build a bunch of stuff for middling amount, so because they can work at economies of scale, and increase the property value. They don't actually, and this is one of the things we're talking about homelessness. This is one of the things that pisses me off constantly is they don't actually care if anyone lives there. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if they're getting income from these properties or they get income from the sale. In fact, actually, they don't want to sell them because what they actually want to do is leverage the property as collateral to buy other things that they want. So by buying something cheaply, improving it better than it was, gentrification, and then turning around and going back out to other banks and saying, hey, I have this valuable asset. I want you to loan me 300 times its worth. So I buy, like, I'm in Compton. I buy, like you said, like the sketchy places, right? I buy those for what, maybe 100, 200 max in LA, $200,000. I spend $70,000 to $100,000 fixing it up. Now I have a $500,000 property, and now I leverage it through finance to borrow minimum $1.5 million off of that same property, which I then go and spend on other things. And
So,
that's what this has become.
Where are the people from Inglewood going? Aside from on the street, which is very evident. Very evident.
Well, that's just the thing, because you a lot of the areas near Inglewood are sometimes higher. And rent, like, you know, they're obviously not going to El Segundo. They're not going
What's north?
They're not going to South Central.
North is South Central.
North of Inglewood is more like the South
that?
Central area. That might be where they're kind of moving towards. They're definitely not going to El Segundo.
Is there anything west?
Well, that's when you get into like El Segundo, the airport.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's more.
LAX.
The thing is, you go west of the 405. That's where the multi-million-dollar homes are. At least $1 million. It'll take you to buy a house west of the 405.
Well, let's talk about where we're at now, because when Rob drove me back to my hotel the other night, he was as surprised. There have been a few things where we both experienced them together.
Yeah.
You not aware of the change, and me just impressed by what I was seeing. And when you roll into Long Beach, there's a lot of really nice stuff.
It's
Right
definitely
where we are, like
yeah.
the waterfront. So there's a bunch of like really extra touristy bullshit down in the harbor.
Right.
Walked through and checked it off my list, but didn't go to anything like P.F. Chang's, Hooters, Bubblegum Shrimp. Like, it's just a whole fucking tourist.
Yeah.
And I've tried to stay away from that, stay here in the Arts District and downtown and stuff, and try to go for like local spots. But in general, this is fancier than I think
what
you
I
thought
remember.
it was.
Yeah. From when I was here over 20 years ago, 2030.
It was rough, from what I understand.
It wasn't like it is now,
Yeah.
where it's kind of more like for here, for example, they have the patio dining.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't have seen that 30 years ago here.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing that's interesting, like today I did a little bit of a walk. Today was the stay in Long Beach, chill out, do your laundry day, because I brought almost enough for the whole trip, but I needed to have a laundry break. So laundry was this morning. Walked around, and I went to Lincoln Park.
Ooh.
And I saw it when I was on the lift ride out to the cemetery yesterday. There's a giant penny as a sculpture at the beginning of the park. I didn't see it from the car yesterday, but on foot today. I was walking up to the park, going to take a picture of the big penny and take a bunch of pictures of the park. Attached to the back of the penny is like a tent and a tarp and an umbrella, and like there's a homeless camp, there's an unhoused person camp on the back side of the penny. Now, I am not, I get lucky sometimes and find photojournalistic opportunities. That was such an amazing picture of the problem in America. The person camped adjacent to the giant penny Like you couldn't make that shit up, but it was right there. And the weird thing is, the park is super new. It's got like all of the modern, keep kids from any harm whatsoever, sheltering fucking theories. And like you step on the playground and it's bouncy. There's like 6 inches of padding on every fucking thing.
Where it used to be sand.
There's a playground. There's a merry-go-round that's like at the same level as the rest of the surface, and it has walls, so no one could ever possibly learn a lesson through pain. It's a very much a modern playground. It's very nice, very fresh. The whole park is very nice and fresh, but there are a lot of folks sleeping in the park, and it really drives home the point that like the nation has a big problem, but like in this area, it's a pretty acute problem. Last night was bananas, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But David, you were jumping in.
Well, no, I mean, I was just going to say, like, it is endemic of the problem of turning American housing, and we saw what happened when we turned American housing into this sort of randomized commodity in 2008. And honestly, from what I'm seeing in economic indicators, we're about to have a bit of a rough ride. And part of it is that, well, no, it's gonna get a lot worse, because guess what? The Republican Congress allowed under Bush after 2008, they allowed CDOs back into the market. So we have a bunch of insurance policies hanging out there for depreciating assets as housing prices start to come down. The Fed right now, part of their fear is that what's going to happen is if the banks start to get funny, then as other banks buy them, they're going to try and they're not only going to try and unload some stuff, but they're also accumulating as we condense banks again, like Silicon Valley, First Republic, Credit Suisse. As this begins to happen again, they're also consolidating those CDOs. They're taking on more of these insurance policies because again, what crushed us in 2008 wasn't the fall in housing prices, it was the insurance policies that people bought. And in many cases, the insurance policies that people bought on other insurance policies, on other insurance policies, on other insurance policies, on other insurance policies, and they allowed them to go do that again. In the past 10 years, they've allowed them to go back and reissue those stupid insurance policies that a bank has no business offering. But as as this continues, the problem is that we continue to run into these situations in which corporations and investment firms have leveraged the value of housing to such an extent that normal people cannot afford housing. I mean, and the thing is, and to give you an example of how widespread the problem is, in LA, it's been horrendous for the past 40 years. And the government of California is to be castigated roundly for its complete inability to deal with a very simple problem. Meanwhile, states like Utah have been able to turn around and say, oh, it's actually cheaper for us as the government just to build houses and put people in them. That's actually a hell of a lot cheaper for when that real estate investment trust that I was working with the Methodist Church was built around that idea of, if we can condense people who need social services around social services, we can lower overall costs for both nonprofits, the government, and everyone else to give social services to people in a relatively close proximity and give them good housing. California is to be roundly castigated for its inability. Well, we're super progressive, unless it means I have to build housing. And
I wonder how much the NIMBY issue is acutely focused in California, because that Atlantic article, if you haven't seen it, if you're out there looking around, Google Atlantic real problem with homelessness because there's an Atlantic article that really laid it bare. And then not fucking 2 weeks after I read this article, that it happened in Grand Rapids. There was a development where there was an adjacent space. They were trying to do a better version of low income or affordable housing. So, this is a rabbit hole we're not going to spend time on, but there's affordable housing is a ridiculously stupid abused.
It's a marketing term.
It is. And until you actually learn about the AMI piece, that's what matters. And so when somebody says affordable housing, they're talking about 80% AMI, which is average median income. Well, if you think about that, 40% AMI is starting to get to where you need to be, not 80. 30 and 20 are much more reasonable. And these people were trying to dip down a little lower. And the news was covering it in Grand Rapids about how the second part of it got defeated, didn't get past the planning commission or something like that. And they had this fucking 20 or 30 something year old white girl, very clearly kind of a liberal girl, on the news talking about, well, I want to have these things that people need, but we just weren't really sure that this was the place in our neighborhood for these. Bitch, fuck, what the fuck? You are the fucking problem. The not in my backyard liberals. Those people on our own side.
And Martin Luther King was very clear. Our greatest enemy is the moderate liberal, is the white moderate liberal, who wants to be like, oh, that's necessary, but not now or not here. I mean, it's very much the stupidity of a lot of people to be like, no, at some point this has to be done, and you're going to have to get used to it, because the only problem is that you.
Oh yeah. Dig into that a little bit because you know more about these. So I went with Rob to this Hawthorne City Council meeting. Rob's been so supportive of what I do on a regular basis, and he's been getting into going to these meetings, and I think he's interested in some neighborhood levels of service and a civic respect. And so I went with him to the meeting, and it was fun. It was.
By the way, you are correct. This is a s'more.
Yep, told you. It's not sportsy enough for me, but it's so dig into that a little bit because I don't know if I picked up on all the topics.
So basically, Sacramento is trying to push this thing where they can acquire property for housing, housed, and sort of thing. So basically, you have a lot of these cities that are most of the managers like, no, not in my city, because they are one that used to be rich, white, conservative. And then the city of Hawthorne is trying to figure out how to navigate this process. Do they become a charter city, which gives some level of autonomy? Try to figure out this word here. Autonomy.
Also known as the Buckhead maneuver.
Right. So Sacramento just can't come in and say, "Hey, Hawthorne, hey, you got this whole mall here. We're going to put, housing here." They're going to have They're trying to figure out what level of power that they have that they don't have now.
And when I was sitting there listening to the discussion in the city council,
and there's a good debate on within the city council.
Yeah, there was a very good discussion. And at first, when it was first brought up, I was like, "Oh, well, that sounds like bullshit. Why should the state come charging in and tell Hawthorne what to do?" That. Well, and I had a resonance with the people that had that general attitude. The more it got discussed, the more I realized, well, wait a second. The state is seeing all these communities that are being dicks about trying to figure out a way to partner and solve this problem. So the state's approach is, okay, you know what? We tried. Fuck it. Fuck you. Here's a law. We're going to make you do it. We're just going to make you do housing since you're assholes and you won't do it on your own.
Yep.
And so I leaned over to Rob. I was like, I don't know. Now I'm starting to kind of feel like I see both sides on this one.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't know if anybody really settled on anything other than both sides kind of have a point. And how can Hawthorne best represent everybody along the way?
Yeah.
I'm going to chime in and remind everyone that the metropolitan form of government is the best form of government. Everyone else can go fuck off. Because guess what happens when your entire county has one single plan on how to do stuff? It might actually get done and might actually work for everyone involved. But
That is true. And you're
So-
in LA County, right?
I'm in LA County, but you
which
have
is
all
not a
these
metropolitan
municipalities,
county.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, and that of all the places that needs to be a metropolitan county, oh Jesus, Mary and fucking Joseph, that place needs to be a metropolitan county. I have no. Every time I contemplate South California governance, I look at LA County and I sit there and I look at it and I'm like, why? Why, for the love of God?
LA City has its own council.
You know what, David? I sat in a commission or a council meeting now in Hawthorne, California, and I've met a few people that were there, and I can tell you without any hesitation that if you want to see a salty fight to the bitter end about a conglomerate of a metro county, Nashville's metro vote got nothing on the belt that would erupt. Because
I'm here for it. I'm here
just
for it.
his
I'm here
bill
for it.
that we went to Denny's and had some milkshakes after the meeting. Just Bill alone, I think, would throw all the brimstone over this idea. But I think a lot of the leaders that are elected, I mean,
Alex Montero.
there's a very independent vibe in just that one, and I have a feeling the rest of them are probably very similar. So, yes, you have a worthy idea there, but I think the ship sailed a long time ago, and I don't know if it could ever.
Hey, guess what? Sacramento. Time to. And here's the thing. I understand your perspective because here in the South, the constant fight is between liberal cities and arch conservative state governments, which we're going to get into here in a little bit. But in California, it's liberals fighting liberals, and I don't really fucking understand it at all. Other than it's all it is this. I really feel it's a Western issue in that method because in east of the Mississippi, right, there is an understanding of. We have to conglomerate at a certain level in order to make things work. And I feel like a lot of the spirit of the people who move west and keep on moving west is that I'm going to have some sort of, in their imagination, I'm going to have some sort of independence. This is going to be my plot of land, and no one else will be able to tell me what to do with it. And that's true in the South, except it's true in the way that I'm going to be able to do with my land, including raise a militia and burn down black people's homes and burn crosses on it. So there's a little bit of a different flavor. I mean, there's a little bit of a different flavor about what goes on down here. But I mean, I feel like it's that aspect of how that works. Like, if you look at Memphis, Shelby County should very obviously be a metropolitan government, and it's clearly divided. Even as community leaders try and say, no, for the sake of cost, for the sake of infrastructure, for the sake of everything, we need to unify the county into one cohesive unit. It's the white communities on the edge of Memphis that keep on trying to pull away and not deal with this. Even as that problem, that line of this is an issue, this is an issue, this is an issue, this is an issue, keeps on grinding up against their doorstep, right? It's not my backyard until it is, and then it's that grinding issue. And I look at LA and I'm like, you have grinding issues all across the place, right? And if only you were to sit down and say, okay, we're going to create a unified plan for all our communities to deal with homelessness, to deal with gentrification, to deal with zoning, to deal with how we're going to split up tax income. Wouldn't this be better?
I was really interested in. I didn't get to catch up with him because he slipped out. But there was a dude there from an organization is overall like it reaches more of a multi-city thing, and their whole deal was work programs, but work readiness programs for the unhoused, which was really insightful. And I'm going to go back and re-watch it and try to figure out who the guy is, because I want to take this back to Grand Rapids and point out to our leaders there. Like, this guy was talking about how you can't just take somebody off the street and put them in a job because they can get their first paycheck and they fall completely off the path of
it's myth busting time. It's myth busting time. How much of the homeless do you think are employed?
A lot more than people assume.
No, guess a number.
I don't remember. I've read it, but it's a lot more.
More than 50% of the homeless are employed. They have a job, normally a 40-hour per week job. I mean, and one of the things, like here in Nashville, you can go into 10 cities and you'll have people who are obviously having mental issues and are obviously living on the very edge. You will also have in that same camp people with their suits hung up in their tents.
Yep.
So that they could go to a job that requires them to wear a suit, but they cannot afford to own a house in Metro Nashville.
Which is 100% fucked up.
And even more so out here.
Yeah, right. Well, I want to close this off with my experience last night, because you and Dave have been making fun of some of the experiences on the train. And there's been a lot of I've told a few anecdotes. They're like, "Welcome to LA, motherfucker." Everything else until last night was the appetizer, the pre-show, the opening act. Last night at the Metro Center station for the Red Line,
oh boy,
was a zoo. A zoo. And I don't mean, because I this issue is really important to me, and I don't want to belittle anybody's mental illness, physical illness, financial hardship, or even drug addiction. But there are some fucking whacked out people involved in that population that are dealing with those issues. And there's one side of it, which is the observational, almost humor side, which is where I'm going to go with this, and it's not out of disrespect. But there's a real problem there. But
for those of you watching at home, that means it's with absolute disrespect.
So I was in Hollywood and hanging out with my friend Russell. He took me to a couple of really cool places. He took me to the Jewish deli and restaurant where they have a backroom bar and stage where Guns N' Roses got together. Like, I got some really cool tour guide things. And when we were done with our night and bouncing around a couple of places, I got him to drop me off. Like Vermont something station. And that was a little
Vermont, say no more.
And wait, was it Vermont? Yeah.
Not the state, not referring to the state.
No, Vermont Street.
Vermont Street, yeah.
And at some point, I'm in oh, I know what it was. It was the Red Line. It was the Vermont. Yeah. So the platform had a few unique characters. One of the characters was, I've never seen this before in my whole life, so I have no nice way to explain. A fitness bro that was a little cracked out and definitely unhoused. I've never seen this before in my life. This guy, on first blush, just looked like a bro showing off. He was like on the platform doing push-ups and shit. He was like turning around and doing leg stretches, and he had another guy with him that was kind of doing the same thing. And then this son bitch was doing handstands, and he was really good at it. But anytime he would stand up and be normal, you could tell he was like, on some shit. And it was the most fascinating human observation I've had.
You can take your eyes off of it.
It was wild. And so then all of a sudden, in the whole mix of all there were a lot of other characters, and I'm just standing around, just being in a city, just existing, doing the thing that I wish a lot of people in Grand Rapids would do, which is expose themselves to bigger shit than their tiny little corner of West Virginia they never fucking bothered to leave. And because people in Grand Rapids say, I'm uncomfortable with the unhoused. I need to feel safe. I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel safe. You know what? Fuck you. Come to LA, and after you pass out, we peel you off the fucking concrete. You'll understand the scale of your experience.
Here,
Brian,
there's Brian.
So, along comes this tiny, adorable Asian girl. I say girl, woman. Very talented. She's an editor in the business here in the area. She's a video commercial editor. I think one of her ads she worked on was in the Super Bowl. Her name's Jocelyn. If she ever watches this, hi, Jocelyn.
Hi, Jocelyn.
She was on the platform, a good 40 feet away from me, maybe 12 feet away from whacked out fitness bro. And she started sideways migrating toward me. And I started picking up that she was not comfortable. I started picking up that she had identified the only normal guy in the room. And she was inching toward me. And I took the physical cue to trade spaces. I went around her and stood over here between her and wacky fitness bro. And then I turned to her and I said, he has astonishingly good balance for someone clearly under the influence. She cracked up a little bit, like, yeah, and I was a little freaked out. So I'm glad you came over here, like, cool. And so we ended up riding the subway together and talking a little bit. And that was when the real zoo, it was packed. And it was packed with whacked out stuff. There was a female individual asleep, laying over on her side with an extremely inappropriately short skirt and some underwear or a G-string that wasn't where it should be. And there's no nice way for me to explain that you could be introduced to this person with your nose before your eyes.
Oh,
and you weren't smelling some butt. And there was a And
all this sounds like Broadway right now.
And so that caused like one random dude that got on the bus who was also not, possibly part of the population that's living on the streets, but a little bit more with his shit together. And he leaned out at Metro Central Station, which I didn't realize I was missing my stop because I was talking to her and kind of keeping an eye on the surroundings because it was a little bit wild. And this one dude turned right around and grabbed one of the 8 LAPD that were just hanging out at the platform at Central, and said, "Hey, come here, look at this." And they asked the girl, please sit up, wake up, sit up. You just need to sit up. They didn't try to do anything to her, and that's great.
Yeah, make sure she was okay.
And then they got off, and the train moved on. And there was this other guy that had gotten on at that stop. And he's just straight fucking bleeding from the brow. And he's holding it. And he's looking around like he's freaked the fuck out. And she caught him and she's really fucking, whoa, what the fuck? And so I felt really sorry for her. And she was explaining to me that she chose not to drive her car to save money. And normally she takes the bus, but she decided to train. She should try the train and be a little faster. And she's like, I really regret that. And
hey,
later,
at least you have public transit options as opposed to here in Nashville.
This is true.
Which wasn't always the case here.
Later this morning, we were messaging through Instagram, and she was like, "I just don't know if I would have made it if you weren't there." Like, oh well, I'm glad I could help out. And it turns out the car she didn't want to drive because she wanted to save money is a beautiful golden yellow Mustang.
Oh, wow.
And she was like, yeah, it gets 9 miles per gallon on the local streets, and I just didn't want to But anyway,
that's when the gas is
I was
$5
really glad I could be a giant lumbering wall that she could take with her in this particular situation. and I ended up turning around at my at her stop and got back on the train and went to the correct stop. But what I need people to be able to do is be flexible and figure out how to deal with these situations, and gradually up their exposure. And I think, and part of what was in my head was like, teach this younger person than me a lesson through my conduct. Like, I was really chill, but I was also protective. I put myself between her and a lot of people. But like, there are people that would be freaked out. They'd be like looking around, like, you know, there are plenty of like average dudes that would be like sticking their arm out, like, "Whoa, buddy, get away," anything like that. And like, that's not necessarily teaching how to.
You mean like if Marjorie Taylor Greene got into a LA subway?
That isn't really even the real issue, though. I would argue the real issue is this: is that social services are one of the most undervalued aspects of a civilized society. And I want to be very clear, like, even dating back to the, Egypt, even dating back to Samaria, before the Bronze Age collapse, after the Bronze Age collapse, we're talking about thousands of years ago. Social services were an essential element of what defined a civilization. And what is happening in LA, I would argue, partially because they don't have a metropolitan style government, but also across America, is an inability of governments to understand. And it's one of the reasons why I look at the fucking Mormons in goddamn Utah as an example, because in Salt Lake City, what they did was they said, okay, we have homeless people who are coming to Salt Lake City and for economic opportunities, and they're not getting all of them because people fall through the cracks. So what we're going to do is we're going to build housing, and we're going to incorporate social services into the housing, right? So that people who have drug addiction issues, people who have mental health issues, people who have physical health issues, all these people can quickly and easily access social services. And one of the cool things that when, of all people, conservative Utah, who is, I would argue, actually conservative, because they actually crunched the numbers and they said, okay, what does it cost us to send caseworkers out all across Salt Lake City to find these people and help them? It costs us this amount. Like, for instance, in Davidson County, it costs on average about $1,500 per individual to have social services go out, reach out to those people, and that's not including nonprofits that help out and all that. For the city and state government, it costs about $1,500. That was about 15 years ago. It's probably closer to about $2,500 today. On the other hand, if you go out to, let's say, Coffee County in Tennessee, the price goes up to $3,500 per individual because they have to travel further. They need a different infrastructure to go and help these people. One of the things that happens when you address homelessness directly and say, okay, we're going to house these people and we're going to provide them the social services they need to get this back up and running. Again, Salt Lake City, when they instituted their program, they found that on average, as much as a third of their homeless population translated back into housed on their own account, housed population, when they had adequate access to social services, such as, hey, I need food stamps, I need housing, I need assistance. I mean, it isn't the job issue. Again, most of the homeless are housed, or not housed. Pardon me. Most of the homeless are employed, but they can't afford housing. And when you turn that situation around and say, okay, I'm going to devote my resources to those people who can't be adequately housed because of some other addiction issue, mental health issue, whatever, number one, the price crashes. The price of delivering services to those people, including the housing, crashes. Right? It's so much easier for the city and state to address those issues directly and affordably. Right? And
Right.
what's even better is those people, many of those people actually get better, and you get rid of, fucking zonked out roid rage bro on the platform because he's getting
Some of those
help.
roids with the rage, but yeah. Like, I mean, I was fucking impressed when he went up on his hands. The train was coming soon, and I was starting to play through the horrific things I was about to see. Because to me, I thought this guy was going to do a handstand, lose his balance, tumble over into the tracks, and then the train would go. Yeah. And I'll be honest, I'm a little stiff from all the walking around, and I don't know if I'm also brave enough to jump in and try to pull some. And he was like
Hey,
my size.
come and work my job for a week. Let's see how stiff you are.
I'm not comparing stiffness and exhaustion. I'm just saying I didn't trust myself to do the rescue there, so I would have probably just had to witness it because there wasn't anyone else that was going to. Because the nearest normal guy was half my size. But on the train was really where the show started. I mean,
Well,
and what's funny is, oh my god, and I don't think these people were even unhoused. I think this chick was just fucking on something, and maybe also drunk. This couple, they were getting off at a stop, maybe 4 stops up from where we are here. She picked up chicken legs falling off the floor of the subway and started eating the leftover chicken wing or chicken leg. And it wasn't. I don't think these were people that were starving. I think she was just that fucked up. And the dude she was with just rolled with it. Wow. Just rolled with it.
I mean, and I would argue again that's an aspect of people, especially in LA. I'm in LA to have fun and make and somehow make it, right?
Ooh, I don't know. They were in the struggle.
Well, no, but like the thing is like I'm in LA to have fun and somehow make it, and part of having fun is I'm gonna get epically fucked up.
Yeah,
a lot.
maybe.
I mean, there's a very big, and Nashville, growingly, in a very noticeable way, is starting to have that problem of. The thing is, at least ours are tourists; they're expected to go home, right? But I mean, Broadway is increasingly becoming a problem for the entire city of people showing up and getting ridiculously fucked up on booze or whatever else they can find, and then doing shit like that.
And I've been trying to impress upon Grand Rapids community leaders, other citizens, everybody in the conversations. We are having a conversation in Grand Rapids right now about this topic. I'm really glad. I'm not thrilled about a lot of pieces of it. I'm really glad. And I've been trying to remind all these people, your problem is not going to always be the unhoused. Your problem is going to be the party bros and the bachelor.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Public safety attention. You're talking about dealing with crime. The least of your concerns in a party city destination are the unhoused. Because it wasn't an unhoused person that made the headlines in 2020 for spinning his colostomy bag over his head on the dance floor. Kid Rock's big ass hockey ball. It was a fucking fucked up weirdo.
Yeah.
Normal fucked up weirdo. Anyway, Brian, yeah, good point about the corridors. I wanted to point out, Brian's, I have a personal friend currently homeless, needs some mental health care in DC. That's so much a summary of what we really need to be applying here.
Yeah.
For those that need the help and will take it, that is such low-hanging fruit. And as we see change happen in communities and all this health take over, we've got to be ready to backstop the rest of that, because this is not going to be better. And it's tough. It's a tough topic. Let's jump on through to our next
the main topic. Before we do, I want to give a quick shout out to Untitled Art, another local outfit here in Nashville, for this soft serve orange IPA. What the fuck? This is it's orange sherbet in a can.
I knew it. I knew that's what you were going to say.
It's
now I want it badly.
I'm really curious because I went to go look at the list of ingredients. I'm like, I want to know what vegetable, like, because it's very clear. It's like India Pale Ale. Okay, so they start with an IPA. No lactose, actually. Vanilla flavored vegan soft serve.
Ooh, interesting.
Caramel coloring, fruits, vegetables, and turmeric.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Right? I'm like,
vegetarian Mexican, like high-end kind of bougie West Hollywood Mexican vegetarian. It's so weird for me to be at a Mexican restaurant where I can just order whatever I want. I know I can eat it. That's what it's going to be like.
That's what it comes out. Yeah, as opposed to Nashville, where it's like, I want the number 17. Please don't fuck it up. Please, for the love of God.
Right.
It's got because you know you're at Las Palmas. First of all.
So Brian is a little late to the game. Off the top, we talked about the Trump.
Yeah, we talked about that.
But if you do have a contribution to what your treats are of the evening, we'll always defer back to you.
Yeah, hey, like let's go ahead and put that bud up on there. Come on, dude.
While we let him do that, let's jump into the main thing. And there's so much that's just a repeat of it, same old shit. But the guy chose to title this was about the cornering of the gun flippers, and I think there's a good hook there that they are cornered in both the good and the bad.
Well,
and good and bad that can come of that. But especially with Brian being here after the beginning, I do want to go back to this image and start this discussion back with you. I want to talk about a couple of things I've noticed about this image. So we're going to talk a lot about irony and a lot about duplicity, two-faced standards, hypocrisy. These are all the things that come into the gun discussion. But the most interesting thing that I noticed from a political standpoint, the picture is terrible, painful, it's iconic. There are people that have been, there are lowbrow, knuckle-dragging dumbasses around that have talked about how awful it is for the photojournalist who took this picture of this child in anguish.
No.
Hello, newsflash. That's why photojournalism exists.
And also, this is the consequence of gun violence in America. I'm so tired. I'm so tired. And you know what? I don't care what the political affiliation of this individual was when they walked into Covenant School. I don't care what Covenant School's political affiliation was. They walked in there dressed in camo, wielding an AR-15 and mowing down innocent people. And this is the consequence of having AR-15s in our society in a developed Western economy. This is not Saudi Arabia. This is not Egypt. This is not Libya. This is not someplace where oh God, I have to go fight off tribal warlords. No, This is Nashville,
Right.
Tennessee, and somehow someone has to have a 30-round magazine, and I don't care what their political affiliation is. For some reason, they need to have a 30-round magazine and walk into places and shoot people with it.
Now, I'm gonna take the picture down, but I want a full digestion here for a second because there's something really important about this picture that struck me. I looked at it several times this week. It's been really hard to avoid this, even though I've been trying to be in this reflection head state, this take a true vacation, take a true break. But everywhere I turn, like the lobby of my fucking hotel, the news is all about this. I scroll Instagram, the most harmless of social media, and every other post is about this. That photo is pretty important in a variety of ways, as we've covered. But the most interesting thing I noticed was if you unpack this a little bit, that is a terrified child, no matter where they went to school. But let's take them objectively out of that equation. They're a terrified private school student. They're a terrified private school student at a religiously affiliated private school in a wealthy part of Nashville. Did you notice where they're sitting? Did you notice who came to the rescue to provide buses for these kids as a refuge? Did you notice Nashville, who saved your ass? It was the public school. The public school bus is where these kids were given refuge. And the thing that I need people to understand is that they go and they do their white flight. They do their contained bullshit to get into their own little culty environment at a private school. But at the end of the day, who saved them that day? It was socialism. It was the socialist public school bus. It was the socialist police department that we all contributed to as taxpayers. Those systems that these idiots want to dismantle, these gun-clinging sickos, don't like those systems, but those systems are how we mounted a rescue that day. And that's important. That photo captures it all.
Yeah. I want to circle back to that real fast, but I already told you my 5 points. I'm gonna give them real fast about what happened.
And you take it and run through those 5 because I think you had a really good line.
So number 1, we keep on wanting to call this individual disturbed. I don't like that. And I'm going to explain very clearly why I like that. I have a mental illness. I have PTSD from being robbed and held hostage with an AR-15.
With an AR-15, right.
Yeah, with an AR-15. Yeah. I have PTSD from this shit. Are there points in which I have to govern my own reactions to things? Yes. I have to think about it. I have to use the rational part of my brain to be like, that's not a rational reaction. You're overreacting. You need to stop. I make a choice, right? And one of the things I hate about all this conversation about red flag laws, about people with mental illness, is that we keep on coming back to this idea that these people are disturbed. These people are disturbed. These people are disturbed. This person obviously had a mental issue that needed to be addressed, but she also, I want to make this very clear because I'm not gonna give this person a free pass because they were trans. Fuck that noise. This person made a choice, and they, in their mind,
they're just as much of a monster as anybody else.
You're right. In their mind, they made a choice to. And I'm going to circle back to some of the reasons for that choice, but they made a choice, and they chose to hurt people. I'm tired of hearing about, and this is where the gun fetishists try and hang their hat, is that it's all just disturbed people. There are a ton of people who are disturbed, and who you are fine with having guns.
Yeah.
Even though I technically have a mental illness because I have PTSD, I can go buy a gun. This isn't about mental illness. This is about choices, and this person made a choice, and I'm tired of people with mental illnesses being saddled with this idea of they're to blame for gun violence. Number one. Number two, on this show, we often talk about horrible things that happen. And, recently in Lucas's neck of the woods, you had a QAnon nut job kill his entire family. And one of the things I think is important in this process is just like I can look at that QAnon nut job and be like, it's our duty as individuals, as a society, to try and understand what happened, not condone, understand what happened. We need to understand what caused this person to think that this was a good option, or at least a less bad option, to walk into a school filled with kids, not high schoolers, not anyone else, kids, and start spraying the place with bullets. And one of the things that strikes me in understanding that scenario is this person identified as trans in a state that is rapidly for the first time ever in U.S. history, the organization which tracks genocide in the world has put up a red flag notice on America for genocide. And it's genocide against trans people. This person, the state of Tennessee has placed trans people under an amazing amount of pressure. It's placed LGBTQ people of all stripes under an amazing amount of pressure in an effort to try and delegitimize their very fucking existence. Does that condone what this person did? No. But does it help us understand where this person is thinking? Yes.
Well, and I also really have a lot of curiosity. And this is why I really want us to see more of these communications, these manifestos, or whatever it is they say. I can't ignore the high likelihood of a revenge mindset. This is the institution this person attended school that likely first introduced them to the subjugation that the right wing was prepared to push to them for the rest of their life. This is the first they likely encountered the bullshit like conversion therapy and all these other denials and just the puppet stringy way that the right.
This is also an institution, and I do not say this without evidence already, because there's already cases working their way through the court. This is an institution that likely enabled pedophiles to continue to prey upon innocent children. Covenant School, in particular, that enabled pedophiles in the name of the church to prey on underage individuals. And I've shared those documents with Lucas. We need to share those documents on the page. These are currently court cases that are working their way through the court.
What's the affiliation of
it's Presbyterian. Yeah, which apparently her original target was CPA. And for to clarify, Christian Presbyterian Academy is a very prestigious private school here in Nashville that arguably has gone around a lot of controversy. Traditionally, they've been considered somewhat moderate, but not really, but kind of. Their board of directors has been very careful. Covenant School has not had any of those safeguards of being considered moderate in any way, shape, or form. And they are ensnared in a current ongoing lawsuit about them facilitating the trafficking of children to... when I say trafficking, I mean actually taking children away from parents and moving them into the custody of a pedophile.
Interesting. Okay.
So,
well, and it's a weird fine line. And when I first started hearing this story, another friend of mine from Nashville got on the explain to them. I'm trying to figure out how to talk about this with some of the right throttle control, because there's a piece
I want to be. I want to be very clear.
when I saw this. Well, hold on. There's a piece of me when I saw this go down. There's a piece of me where I said, you know what? You probably had it coming. You push these people to where they are, and now you've seen what happens.
But not the kids, and this is the key thing. Not the kids,
but like this is the risk we run when we create all this othering and we create all this oppression and we come on these attacks. It's unnecessary adversarial conditions. And then when you see someone decide to strike, it's real complex. So on one hand, I'm like, it's an unacceptable tragedy enabled by all these bad problems. But on the other hand, also like, oh, look what it got you. Look what it got you to oppress.
Well, because I mean, I think you and I both had the same thought, which when this initially occurred, which was, this is a very conservative school with very conservative parents. Is it a surprise that some kid who finally had enough in the school grabbed daddy's AR-15 and decided to, and that turned out not to be the case. I want to be very clear.
We heard that it was a teenager or something. So like there was an initial impression that maybe it was a student. Yeah. Current.
Yeah. So I mean on top of it all, like the third point that I wanted to make was Tennessee is currently trying to loosen gun laws, and then we have an individual in full camo walk into a school and start blasting. Do we imagine that this is not going to be the commonplace issue when we continuously loosen gun laws? I mean, this happened because Tennessee kept on saying, no, you don't need a license for long guns. No, you don't need a license for high-capacity magazines. No, you don't need a license for assault-style weapons. No, you don't. Like every single time, there could have been any break in this chain. No. That's a violation of someone's Second Amendment rights. And what they actually mean, and Washington Post posted a really interesting article today, breaking down a survey of people who actually own AR-15s. And it's really insightful because the vast majority of these guns are not owned by, average homeowners in high crime neighborhoods. They are not owned by individuals who are super concerned with their own personal safety. They're owned by people who want to own one because they can and are overwhelmingly white and rich. Overwhelmingly, 75% of the people who own an AR-15 earn more than $100,000 per year and live in the suburbs.
Every time we dance into all this, I always think back to Robert Williams. You have the right to bear arms. You have the right to arm heirs. You know, it's like literally just a gun in every critter's hand, not just people. Like that's the mentality. It's like, I mean, the world will be better if everybody and everything has firearms.
There was no. And again, I want to come back to the idea of what is an AR-15 most useful for. I have nothing against someone owning a handgun to protect their home. An AR-15's optimum range is between 200 to 300 yards. It's not a self-defense weapon. If you point an AR-15 in your house, you are more likely to kill everyone else in your house, including maybe the intruder, but very likely to kill other people in 2 rooms away. Right?
Yeah. Those things go for the walls.
This is not a self-defense weapon. This is a weapon of war. It was designed to engage enemies at range because that's where you want to kill them. Over there, not in front of you.
Well, and then there's the whole situation with the damage that round causes versus the pistol.
Oh, but we never see photographs of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I have to say that exact thought went through my head when I had an AR-15 pointed at me. That exact thought went through my head because I had an AR-15 pointed 4 feet away from me at my back, and the thought that went through my head was, if he fires this gun, I have about, at most, 4 to 5 minutes before blood loss is an issue because the bullet's going to enter my back in a hole about that size, and it's going to exit my front in a hole about that size.
And in the process, it's going to 3D animation that the post did, which is great. I mean, it just obliterates, shreds, and comically fucks up.
Right? I mean, it was definitely a moment. I joked with someone recently the other day. I'm like, it was definitely a moment of like me feeling my kidneys, like as this was happening, me feeling my kidneys while they were still inside me instead of outside me. While this guy was pointing this gun at me. A 9mm round doesn't do that. Not even a 357 round does that. A 45 round can. But again, at that range, it's still probably going to go straight and not tumble and shatter my insides. This is a stupid gun that doesn't need to be here. I'm gonna move on to my next point real fast, which is schools. I'm not surprised that this happened at a school because the GOP has made schools. They've made them a focal point of their culture wars. Am I surprised that a trans person chose a school full of innocent children to target? No, I'm not. Because everything about what they've done over the past 12 months. What?
Is it the fact that they went to that school? We know that for sure. They were a student there.
Can't hear you.
They were a student there, right?
Yeah, they were a student there.
He passed. Okay.
Yeah.
So
he, they passed.
That's why I keep saying they, because apparently there was a little bit of a back and forth on that.
Yeah, but I mean, is it any surprise that schools have been targeted and are going to continue to be targeted? Conservatives have targeted schools. During the pandemic, you had Florida militias targeting schools, targeting school administrators for trying to enforce COVID regulations because they turn and the GQP has continued to turn schools into a focal point of the culture wars, taking away books, firing teachers, doing all these things. And these are supposed to be genuine public institutions that are there for the public benefit of all. And the GOP has turned this into a battleground.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm not surprised.
There's no reason for regular people to have these weapons.
No.
The time has passed long ago for the notions that lead to any of that. Way, way, way past. And when you look at this case, everybody always wants to figure out how can we blame the school? How can we find a way to say that the school did something that they didn't arm themselves against this issue? Well, they had glass doors, and those glass doors were shot out. So much for the locked doors. And I don't know enough about guns. You probably do. Could you have gotten through the glass as easily with a handgun?
No, a 9mm round would not have caused enough damage to the glass. In most cases, probably for. I mean, it's right? Insanity. Yeah, I mean, you would have had to like pound on it and like try. But luckily, in AR-15, you can, depending on the butt style that you choose, might still be able to do it, but not without great effort. Probably more effort than they were able to muster. But an AR-15 round with that amount of force, yeah. Even a 357 round, maybe you could do it with a 357 round. Definitely not with a 9mm round.
Yeah, right.
Like anytime they show you on movies or TV shows, we're just like bam, 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 and like it. Maybe a whole clip down a locked glass door could help you break it. But not what she had to do, which was just shoot it a couple of times and have it break. Because one of the things, and the Soviets actually complained about this when we introduced the M16, which was the Soviet round did not have a tendency to tumble. The M16/AR-15 round has a tendency once it's fired to flip end over end, which means that when it hits its target, it may, most of the time at optimal range, it should hit directly, and then once force is applied, it tumbles end over end. But
Right. Yeah.
in that instance, but again, it's one of the problems with the 2.2 long / .223 NATO round. Ironically, it's one of the reasons why the U.S. military is moving away from the standard NATO round, is because Afghanistan created a whole fucking host of problems for the U.S. military, in that tumbling action of the round created issues at range. The Taliban fighters were able to pick off the U.S. fighters at longer ranges with an AK-47 that had been properly maintained and rifled, as opposed to the M4 carbine, because the M4 carbine at a certain range would start to tumble and the accuracy would decrease. One of the reasons why they're now switching to the new SIG round for special forces is because it does not tumble. It's a bigger round, and that's actually closer to what the AK-47 uses. And the reason for that is because that round does not tumble.
So let's talk about the cornering aspect. The reason that I went there with this particular angle on the topic.
Yeah.
One of your points that you mentioned to me earlier was the way that this has immediately become fodder for the GQP to amp up even more anti-trans rhetoric.
And I quoted you a name in the course of this, which is Herschel Grisban. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the name, which I imagine most Americans aren't, Herschel Grisban was a Polish Jew who shot a Nazi consul, and his shooting, this Polish Jew shooting a Nazi consul, triggered what we now know today as Kristallnacht, which was the night of broken glass, the night that Nazis attacked Jewish homes, attacked Jewish businesses. It was the night of broken glass. I don't think that this person deserves the same level of respect as Herschel Grisban. I don't. But conservatives are trying to amp it by literally on social media, the number of conservatives saying all trans are dangerous, round them up and kill them, round them up and put them into, literally round them up and put them into camps. These are the words that are coming out of their mouths.
Which I don't find the least bit surprising.
Well, it isn't. And I'm like, you're literally going to take someone who killed and who I cannot support. They went and targeted innocent children who had nothing to do with this fight, nothing to do with this problem, nothing to do with any of this. And you're going to turn them into Herschel Grisban. You're going to turn a person who does not deserve it, and not in any way, shape, or form. And you're going to turn them into them because your reaction is so bigoted, so vile, so disgusting, that even someone so disgusting as they killed 3 children and 3 adults in a manic act. It's so, the entire situation is so fucking vile, it's almost beyond comprehension. But then again, we live in modern America, and it's not really beyond comprehension anymore, is it?
Right. Yeah, sadly enough. Well, I want to pivot real quick to some of the I wouldn't say positive or silver lining, but there have been some interesting pieces to this that I really appreciated. One of those was the immediate comparison, and I praise Chief Drake in Nashville for taking this posture. Chief Drake took a low-key shot at Uvalde, and it was beautiful. He basically, in one of his press interviews or press conferences, said, "We're not Uvalde. We didn't wait. We went right in." And I was just like, "Oh, damn! Drop the mic."
Yeah.
And I think what that says, in one way, is that you have a couple of different schools of thought in law enforcement. You have the people that understand what they're expected to do, like Drake and the culture he's trying to have in Nashville's PD. Then you have the sniveling fucking cowards that we saw in Uvalde that sat around holding their dicks while kids were getting shot. And I thought it was really nice to see somebody at least pitch that gauntlet in that conversation so casually, because what it shows you, because I don't think Drake got up there and decided, today, how can I take a jab at Uvalde? I think it was just such common thinking, just so much on the front of the
Oh,
mind.
no. I'm going to say that he definitely thought about it like, what would I have done differently at Uvalde? And I
Right.
I would give Metro PD shit all day and for the entire week
Same.
about how they handle shit sometimes.
Yep. But not this. Because those body cam videos show an incredibly exactly what they're supposed to be.
They show a police force that understands, hey, I live in a major metropolitan area. The time is blood. Time is blood. Move.
The precision with which it was handled and the execution of the operation, it was just exactly what we really should see as an example of the hero part that they want us to just give them automatically.
No. Those guys actually fucking earned the paycheck that day.
Yeah, really did. And I mean, I just wish it was more common that the precision and the heroism was the default in real examples. So it was nice to see. Cass points out Uvalde responders were fucking amateur police that went in. Nashville's was a trained, experienced military and Marine veteran. Let's do it. That's a good point.
Marines don't teach you to do that. I want to be very clear. Marines don't teach you to do that. Police departments teach.
Well, they teach you the discipline to pick up training.
Well, I mean, so Marines will teach you how to use a gun. Marines will teach you how to do a lot of things. They will not teach you how to conduct yourself in a law enforcement scenario. That guy was properly trained in a law enforcement scenario on how to address a situation. And again, I'm going to come back to something that I keep on preaching, which is I am nothing against Metro PD.
Here we go.
Yeah. You know where it's going. You know where it's going.
Versus peace enforcement.
There we go. We know what's coming. I have nothing against Metro PD being peace enforcers. In other words, it's time to go crack some skulls. Call in Metro PD. When it comes to peace enforcement, and when it comes to regular everyday policing, we need peace enforcers, not armed, not doing what happened in at Covenant School. So Metro PD, I applaud you. Like if we need skull crackers, and we do need sometimes skull crackers, this is a perfect example. Someone to go in, go in heavy, go in armed, and go in strong. Metro PD. But the thing is, most of the time we don't need that.
Most of the time we just need some general order, and in a lot of cases, help for people. And I think you have a very valid point, even though you do wear it out. But you have a very valid point. That there's between that militarized response of peace enforcement versus the peacekeeping concept of just managing the space of
Oh,
society.
I haven't even gotten close to wearing it out.
Not expecting these people to be fucking psychologists and EMTs and cat rescuers and all the other bullshit that we ask for policing to be. I would love it if we could just ditch the term entirely. If we could just switch to a public safety terminology in every community, and then if you need a response like what we saw, it becomes a tactical response. Let's just get rid of the word, get rid of the concept of police, and let's embrace the concept of public safety and all the gradients that
Or we
should
can
come
just-
with, and
we
then
can
all the
just split it
support
up.
services and parallel services.
Or we can just split it up and say this is the province of the sheriff's department, where we have an elected sheriff and sheriff's deputies, and this is the province of the police. The police are there to crack the skulls and do the ugly, violent work, which sometimes is necessary in the preservation of societal order. I don't.
So I really
Again,
feel like
I see this as a progressive, as someone who's more than likely to face the skull crackers.
Right. Well,
We're
so-
like,
so to
you
wrap
all think
up
I'm
on-
the threat to societal order,
Yeah.
but I'd rather you all be professionals
true.
about it.
To wrap up on this cornering thing, I really feel like we've got to be looking over our shoulder with the right, because
Oh,
this is being capitalized in, like you've already mentioned, the doubling down on trans hate, but like just they're gonna say that we're all crazy and overreactionary, and they're going to be blissfully unaware of the irony that this happened in a private, wealthy, religious, in a wealthy community, someone oppressed by their own dogmas, and using the weapons that they seem to be just absolutely pleased as much to keep inserting into society at any point they possibly can.
No.
They're going to ignore all of the this is almost 100% squarely the
you
fault
do,
of
you do realize this came on
created
the
by
heels. You do realize this came on the heels of Tucker Carlson doing an entire segment over we have to do something about the LGBTQ people arming themselves.
Yeah.
Tucker Carlson did an entire segment about we have to do something about LGBTQ people arming
We've heard
themselves.
that song before. I think the NRA wrote that tune. We have to do something about these colored people arming themselves, if I remember the rhetoric.
Well, and
It's
again,
always
you know,
fine for the Christian, straight, white nationalist to have guns with these motherfuckers, but it's always a problem when the oppressed and sidelined, other marginalized people decide.
fuck the 14th Amendment when it doesn't suit us.
Yeah, basically, yeah. We've done a lot of talking. I don't want to leave you out. Did you have any aspect of this that particularly struck you, aside from the fact that we're both parents of kids that go to schools?
Yeah, I'm
particularly
taken back by
fucking
the bus photo because that girl on the bus looks a lot like my niece daughter.
Yeah. See, and honestly, David, like, I've been in vacation mode, and you had enough time in Nashville to understand the proximity. I have been able to be separate from this. I feel like I'm having an out of body approach to this event in a lot of ways. But the school that our kid would go to would be Hillsborough High School. The very first notice of what was happening in this event gave me every reason to believe it was Hillsborough High School. And when I first had somebody message me, Green Hills School on lockdown for active shooter, that was the first assumption I made. This is Hillsborough High
No.
School.
I'm going to be honest. Having gone to Hillsborough High School, nah. And I'll tell you why. I never would imagine. I may be proven wrong at some point in the future, but I'll tell you why I never imagined Hillsborough High School being the site of a school shooting. it has a faculty and a staff which is hyper involved in inclusion.
That's true.
It has it has a faculty and staff that is hyper involved in. Hey, you seem like the odd man out. Let me find some place for you to fit in. Let me engage you.
I'm not talking about the student. I'm not talking about the student or the former student. I'm talking about the random fuck off target of the adult male, usually white nutball.
But why would they target?
Green Hills is.
Why would they target? From my perspective, as a graduate of Hillsborough High School, why would they target Hillsborough High School? Because the thing is that institution
that's not related to a school target any school. I mean,
why is Sandy Hook targeted?
Yeah, it's
well. Every one of those individuals every one of those individuals had a tie to the place where they attacked. Even this individual had a tie to Covenant that they attacked. I'm hard pressed to think of anyone, even in their darkest moment, who would have something against how Hillsborough High School runs. And I want to be very clear why. Hillsborough High School runs on a very clear mandate of we have a diverse community. We bus in a lot of kids. We have local kids. And one of the things that has to happen at Hillsborough High School and every metropolitan public high school is there is an active I can fault MNPS for a lot of shit, and I know you can too. But one of the things that they are very active about is we have to build, and I'm going to step back from that idea just one step, which is having been the product of both public and private schools, I cannot tell you how much, looking at today's America, how much I can be against private schools. I do not believe private schools are any longer can be tolerated in our society, given the shape that it's taking. And the main reason why is that the public schools in Metro Nashville are highly geared towards we have to integrate everyone into a common community. And one of the things that I feel that private schools take away from, and homeschooling takes away from, and I understand. I have a good friend who is now homeschooling her kid. I know people who've taken their kids out of public school because they feel that they need different needs. I disagree with that decision. And I disagree with that decision for this reason. Yeah, is that this is the moment in which we become a nation, in which we become a society, in which we become a community. Is we all have a shared experience growing up and moving through this educational process during formative years. And when you take that away, when you balkanize it, when you separate it into these individual pieces, then you when you do this, you encourage, I would argue, a non-communitarian, non-shared experience, which further separates us from each other. If we can just have, if you look at Finland is an example where they didn't outlaw public schools, but they basically said, if you want to send your kid to a private school, rather, you have to pay a tax on top of everything else. You have to pay an extra tax and the tuition to the private school. If you're that dedicated, we'll allow you to do it. But everyone else needs to go to a public school. They need to learn Finnish.
That's true. I agree.
Multicultural, right? You have people arriving from other countries, like Somalia, like other places. You have Russians and all sorts of other people, and they have to go to school and work together as a community.
I want to point out this just real quick. Shooter had been led against the pastor's counsel and believed himself identified himself. Based on this, you see the recording of the father might have been counseling the shooter. There's so much more to this story that's going to open up, and I think we have to definitely.
There's a lot of pieces to this story that I think are still developing about how this person interacted with a very conservative branch of the Presbyterian Church, and I feel like
I'm going to call it now. I don't expect any of the additional facts and additional revelations to benefit the right-wing approach to English. I think that this is going to be continued nails in all of the coffin of their reasonable ability to make any arguments whatsoever.
And luckily,
coming out of this, it's a really terrible price to pay.
And luckily today we had I want to end this show on this moment. We had a mass protest at the Capitol, calling for state legislators to stop dicking around and finally do something about gun control. And it will continue here in Nashville until we get, instead of constitutional carry or any of this other bullshit, to finally do something about guns in this state and in America.
Well, and honestly, like, it's really ridiculous that we have to have this happening every major city along the way. We keep checking off all the cities. Everybody gets to have one. But there's no surefire way to make sure that this shit gets eventually solved than to keep allowing problems to happen. And those jackasses have so little self-preservation. Like you often say, they can't look ahead. They have no future concept. They don't plan ahead. They don't understand how much it's going to continue to add pressure. And Nashville became a catalyst. It would make me proud in a sad way. But something has to give, and it will. And I'm very optimistic. Rob, thank you for joining us tonight. David,
thank you, Rob.
Thank you for having both of us in your midst. And now it's that time, ladies and gentlemen. It's the time when we say good night,
good evening,
and good luck.